Hi guys, I'm Charlie the Charlie Book Fanatic. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to talk to you about the books I managed to read in January. The first book I managed to read I have quite a controversial opinion on, and that book is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is a standalone YA contemporary about a girl called Star who sees one of her best friends being shot while she's in the car with him. He's shot by a white police officer. It's a story about hate, it's a story about family, about people coming together to fight racial injustice. And I think the message this book was trying to send out, it didn't really hit the mark for me, because I felt like the way this book was written was quite contradictory. I really liked Star as a character, I really liked the family dynamics, the characters were fully developed, I really liked them. The problematic part for me is really in the writing of this book. There's definitely racism, and I feel like racism is not just against minorities. Racism is hate against a race, and I felt like that was quite prevalent in here, not just towards black people, but also the black people in this book towards white people. And I know that is quite a controversial thing to say, but some of the remarks in this book made me feel really iffy, and I just couldn't forget. I couldn't see past those remarks. I felt like this book was very hypocritical. It's talking about hate against black people and trying to fight injustice against black people, but meanwhile the black people in this book, a big part of them, are showing racism towards white people, and they're also just stereotyping all white people. I wish I would have tabbed some of the remarks that were in here, but there were definitely conversations where Chris, Star's boyfriend, was in the car with 3 other people. They were all black. Chris is white. They were making jokes about Chris because he was white. And as soon as Chris asked, "Can I ask a question about black people?" they all fall silent and they just look at him like he's crazy. Like, it's racist to say something like that. And I was like, yeah, but you were just joking about white people in front of a white person. And as soon as he asks a question, he is asking if he can ask a question. That's suddenly a problem. And I felt like that was so hypocritical, and it really tainted my enjoyment of this book. If you want some more good quotes, you can just look at the 1 and 2 star reviews on Goodreads. I did not rate it 1 or 2 stars because I thought this book was better than that. Some of the quotes just made me feel very, very iffy about this book. And I just expected more from this because this book had so much hype. And for all good reasons. Black lives do matter. This book is written for the Black Lives Matter movement. But I did definitely get some of the 1 and 2 star reviews. There was also a review that said, why did it matter that the police officer was white? Why couldn't it just be about the police officer? Why does it have to do with the fact that Khalil, the guy who was shot, was black? And I think that is a very good question, because why does it matter? Because statistics show that police officers don't just shoot black people. Overall, there are more white people that are being shot than there are black people by police officers. So I didn't really understand why it was about race necessarily. Why the police officer suddenly was labeled to be a racist, although he was definitely in the wrong. And for me, it doesn't matter whether Khalil was white or black. The police officer was in the wrong by just shooting him. And I get that the police officer was shocked because he was suddenly grabbing something out of his car while he was supposed to stand still. The police officer didn't have to shoot him 3 times. He shot him 3 times, and not just in the leg, but in the back. And that is a horrible thing. It doesn't matter whether a person is black or white, it's just plain wrong for a police officer to shoot someone without thinking clearly. I still gave this book 4 stars, so don't worry about it. It's not like I completely hated it. I loved the story, I loved the characters. It's just a problematic aspect that I just explained that bothered me a lot, and it is why I rated it 4 stars and not higher than that. But overall, I think this is a story that's definitely worth hearing because it carries a very important message, although it is a little hypocritical. And just the characters are so lovely and endearing, and I really had fun with this book. But I can't forget the, in my opinion, racist comments that other white people also have noticed, because I've read some reviews on Goodreads and I am not just the only one who's saying this. I then read a memoir called Educated by Tara Westover. This is a standalone, it's a memoir, it's non-fiction. It's about Westover's education. She never went to primary school or high school. She lived in a survivalist family who didn't believe in school, so she had a big family and she always had to work with her family, and it's about her eventually ending up at Cambridge, I believe it was, and her working up towards that, A lot of tragedy happens in this book, a lot of accidents happen. And that's explained mostly because Tara's father doesn't believe in medicine. He believes in her mom, who is a healer, but she's not a surgeon or a real doctor or anything. They're very stuck in like medieval ways where there's like a healer and there's a midwife and the woman is not supposed to work, the men are supposed to work, that kind of thing. I definitely get Tara's frustration with her family and her wanting to get out of that. You could also see some other family members of Tara's leaving throughout the years because they just didn't feel comfortable with their family anymore. They were very sheltered, they never knew what was outside. At one point in this book, it's explained that Tara didn't even know what the Holocaust was, and she was sitting in a class at university and she saw the word Holocaust. She didn't know what it meant, and she asked the question in front of the entire class, and everyone was shocked because they thought she was making a horrible joke about it, but she just didn't know because no one explained it to her. They also didn't use like computers or real television. They didn't even have a phone at first. It has been a while since I read a memoir. I think it's been more than a year, 2 years maybe. I don't really love non-fiction, but I definitely do not regret reading this one. I might want to read more memoirs after this. I also rated this one 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I found it very hard to rate this one because you are rating someone's life story. I also read some reviews where people were saying that they felt like Tara was over exaggerating, like it seemed like a lot of things happened throughout the years that weren't very realistic. I don't know, I feel like I can't judge Tara's life story because this is how she remembers it, and I can't judge that because I wasn't there, you know? I can just judge what she's written. She's also very clear about some incidents where she uses footnotes and says, this is how I remember it, but then I talked to my family about these particular incidents and they remember it differently than I do, and she explains their viewpoints and stuff, and I feel like she was very clear, very straightforward about that, and I really like that. Another interesting book I managed to read in January is one that I've been tiptoeing around for a long time, and that is Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma. This is a standalone adult contemporary, I would call it. I wouldn't really call it YA because there are some explicit scenes in here in terms of sex. This is about a brother and a sister who have always grown up with each other, falling in love, and they have to care for their younger siblings. While their mother is basically an alcoholic, she's always off with her boyfriend, and it really leaves all of the responsibilities to her 2 eldest kids. They have never felt like they were brother and sister because they were always caring for their younger siblings as parents together, and eventually they admit their feelings and they really fall in love with each other and start a relationship. I really saw where this book was going and I still hoped it wouldn't go there, and it did. The ending was so good. It was so realistic and it really broke my heart. I did rate this book only 3 stars because the writing wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. I felt like the male main character was very whiny. He has kind of a speaking problem, like he speaks at home to his siblings, but he doesn't speak at school. He's very shy. He has a stutter, and I feel like that was very interesting. I've never really read about a character with a stutter. Then there is the female main character who always takes care of her brother. Her brother is the older one. I love this little family. I love that they all have different personalities and the family dynamics were really great. Obviously it's a very taboo topic, incest, but I felt like Tabitha Suzuma really did well with that topic. She used the topic as best as she could, and she just tried to talk about a taboo subject and make it seem more humane, and I feel like she really succeeded in that aspect. I didn't feel disgusted while reading this. I just wanted everyone to end up happy. Obviously with a story like this, that is just not going to happen, and it made me so sad because everything was just ruined. Tabitha Suzuma broke my heart with this book, but I still was fascinated while reading this. But I did feel a little iffy about like some of the sexual scenes, but I have that with other books, even if they're not about incest as well. So for the amount of kind of sexual scenes and sexual talk that is in there, I felt like it was more than enough for me. And I also feel like the female main character was a very naive in a way. Like, she didn't know that you could go to jail for incest. She was like, this was a plot twist in the book. Like, the male main character told her that they could go to jail if they were discovered, and she was like shocked about it. She didn't realize. And I'm like, how do you not realize that you can be jailed for incest? Like, I feel like that's common knowledge. I feel like you should do more research on the subject, maybe, before you actually start a relationship and let it go too far. that's just what happened. Those are just my thoughts, and that's why I rated it 3 stars in the end. I read a book that really surprised me, and that is Without Merit by Calling Hoover. It's a YA contemporary. I haven't read a Calling Hoover in a while, but I saw Without Merit at my local library. I picked it up in December, read it in January, and it is so different from anything else that Calling Hoover writes. I was so pleasantly surprised by it. I rated it 4 stars. I absolutely loved it. There was so much going on in this book though, which is why I didn't rate it 5 stars, because man, the drama in this book. Everyone had their own storyline going, which is good, but every single storyline was so dramatic. Some of the things that are going on in this, there's a mom with agoraphobia who lives in the basement of a church. The rest of the family lives in the church. Like, they renovated the church to become a house. The dad has like 1 million kids. He has a new wife who he also has a kid with. His ex-wife still lives in the basement. Then there's our main character who is just plainly depressed. Then there is our main character's twin sister who falls in love with guys who are dying in a hospital of cancer or some sort of thing, because she has a traumatic experience with a boyfriend who died when she was 13. Then there's a whole romance thing going on with our main character and our twin sister's boyfriend. Then there's this whole feud with the main character's dad and a pastor, and the pastor's dog that comes up to their house, and that hates this dog, and it's this whole journey about the relationship between the dad and the dog and how they go on from that. And then there's also the stepmother who every single kid in this house hates, Victoria, who also has the same name as their mom. The mom is also called Victoria. Just a lot was going on. I'm not going to mention everything because spoilers, but man, the drama did not end in this book. And I like a lot of drama in a book. Like, I was not bored a single moment. I was on the edge of my seat constantly. And I felt like this book was very enjoyable, although I did feel a little like a guilty pleasure read, to be honest. I did feel like this was one of Colleen Hoover's more enjoyable books. It dealt with very tough topics but still managed to be light-hearted, and I feel like a lot of Colleen Hoover's books are not very light-hearted. They just deal with heavy topics and there's not a lot of humor going on in them, but I felt like this one was very different. I definitely hope Colleen Hoover writes more books like this one. This book came out in 2017, so it isn't her latest release, and I also think she hasn't written a lot of YA anymore since then, if any, so I'm kind of afraid that this is the last book that is going to be kind of like that, but I am determined on continuing on with my Colleen Hoover journey because I've read quite a few of her books by now and I definitely want to read more. So that's for all of the books I managed to read in January. Let me know down below what you managed to read in January, or did you read any of the books I just talked about and what did you think about them? I would love to know.